Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk to you something board game adjacent that actually was the thing that caused the adjacent board game in the fact of Red Rising. So Red Rising is the first book in a trilogy of sci-fi awesomeness. Let's get that out of the way. It's also the first trilogy with a sequel trilogy still being written. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about those first three books because it kind of does have an ending to that trilogy. And then there is the board game by Stonemaier Games that is Red Rising. So that board game, as I've spoken to you about on the channel before, you can go and check out my review sort of for more thoughts, but originally I didn't like it. The first time I played it, I really didn't like it, but then I had the opportunity to play it again at a lower player count, and it started ticking for me. And actually now I really do enjoy it. I've got the collector's edition, which is just a teeny little bit nicer than the standard one. And by that, what I mean is there's like some foil on some of the cards, and I think maybe some of the resource cubes are metal rather than plastic. But it doesn't change the game, it's just that little bit nicer. But Red Rising as a board game I really enjoy. You're trying to collect a house of cards. You start with some, you're trading people in and out, trying to get a better house, a better selection of cards to score you points. Now, the way that works is you need different characters, all from the books, that are, trying to pair up with each other potentially. And they're, if you've got both of them in your hand, you're going to score more points. Or maybe someone that doesn't want to be with someone who they didn't like in the book, then you don't want them. Otherwise, they're not going to be scoring you as much points. Maybe they need golds, blues, or whatever the colour of the society is that they need to sort of just score up. And that's how the game works. And it actually does kind of work with the core concepts in the book, in terms of there is obviously that society, the very distinct layerings and types of people that get put in. Golds supposedly at the top, all sort of at the top of this pyramid of colours. They are superior to everyone else, at least that's what they think. And then there's all the other colours underneath that are propping up that society, making it work, from running the technologies, like the blues that control ships and stuff, through to the reds who are effectively the slaves mining away sort of for the resources for humanity, or at least for the golds. The board game does a good justice of that, having the wide selection of colours. Actually, the selection of colours when you play the game, there's some that are very similar, like copper and bronze, that isn't great. But in the books, they need to still have those different colours. Everyone from the society does need to be represented. And that is something that the books really try and talk about, in terms of you're following, in the first book, Red Rising, Darrow, and maybe further on. I don't want to do too many spoilers here, because I really do recommend you reading it. And it's the fact that you're following his journey as a red, so bottom of that pyramid. And at the start they are just mining. He's trying to get the resources to help terraform a planet for humanity. Does he manage that? Do they manage to do that terraforming? That's where that story starts to unravel and unfold, and then all of the different colours sort of get thrust in. How you find out, the obsidians, these big security-like people that are almost, well, they are effectively bred for being a security guard. So it's, the strongest breed the strongest, and over generations these are now towering over people, chunky, muscled, beastie people. And then you've got the blues that are pale, they just spend all the time in the computer basically, almost, linked in, so they're just pale, slim, and over the generations all of these people have split off into their groups because of their designated colours. And that's what the books sort of look into, and it's quite an interesting sort of story. Certainly, there's some real world stuff maybe in there as well. Of, some people are born into being more fortunate, be it more fortunate because they've got money or the country they're born into, and it's almost they've transposed that logic and put it into a colour system. Over the books, there is a lot of action, there's twists, there's turns, and there's a lot of times where you're really hoping for the main group of characters that are trying to do good, and constantly they are just clawing through some sort of successes. They're just managing to do something. They're missing out on this. They're just getting beaten back there. So you never quite know when a success has been made or when they're going to think they've made a success or about to, and then they get stomped down. And this happens throughout all 3 books of the series. It's quite interesting that book 1 is almost you learning a little bit about the sort of the universe, the world that's set with the society, and it's very grounded. That second book is much more in terms of sort of planet wide rather than small area. It's more planet focused, and then the third book it's sort of solar system focused, because it's sort of all set in the solar system in, well, probably many years time. And that's how it all works. And you never, even in like the third book where it's a big thing about the whole of the solar system, you never sort of fully forget, or it never fully leaves behind the small area part of the first book. So some of the combat, it's talking about ship-to-ship sci-fi epicness. And then there's still the bits which it's up front, them using razors which are effectively magical, mechanical sort of swords. And they're still going at each other with that, and with like personal shields, almost Dune-like personal shields, and hand-to-hand almost combat. It's got all of that scale. And it was just an enjoyable read. It's one of those books that I couldn't put it down. And when I did, I was thinking about it and wanting to read more. It's given me a few late nights where I've started reading, I'll just read a couple of chapters before I go to bed. And that sort of spiralled on. Certainly that last sort of 70, 80 pages of that final book, there was no way I was stopping. I was just going to power through to sort of see what happened. And it has a really, yes, there is that second sequel trilogy which isn't finished. I've not started that yet. I'm in that sort of, I've finished that first trilogy. It feels like a sort of, it's an ending. It feels like there's more they could do and explore, and I have no idea what it does, but it does feel like a contained story though. You need to read the 3 though. After the first one, it's something's happened that leads up to book 2 to lead up to book 3 sort of thing, and then the trilogy is rounded off. One thing about reading the books is that it's written in a really quite interesting, I found, fast to read style. The chapters weren't ever short. I do sometimes like really short chapters because then you can stop conveniently, but they never really dragged on. There was 1 or 2 chapters which I did find were quite long, and I had to, unfortunately, I was tired, pause it in the middle, which I never like doing. But often that was, an important scene, but not maybe like an action-packed one. Most of the action was short chapters that sort of built together the narrative for the action, allowing you to pause part way, and then some of the other scenes where you're trying to you're finding out a bit more about the society, or quite what's going on behind the scenes. Some of those were a little bit longer. Most of them I didn't have a problem with. Like I said, there was just 1 or 2 in the trilogy where I was like, okay, I can just about stop here. I want to get to the end of the chapter, but I'm tired, sort of thing. Red Rising, brilliant set of books. I'm really glad that the board game brought them to my attention, and actually I'm dying to go and play the board game again now I've finished that trilogy. And I kind of wish at some point I would be super surprised if it doesn't get turned into some kind of film or TV series, because it's got the brilliant writing, all of the interesting twists and turns that would make a fantastic series. Action-packed. It doesn't pull any punches. It's not light-hearted. It's got some bits of romance, but it never sort of dives down there in a 50 Shades style. It's got a lot of gruesome sort of squelching parts of war and combat, but it never necessarily hangs on all of that too much. All in all, if you liked the board game of Red Rising, definitely read the books. And if you've enjoyed the books, definitely try and play the board game. And if you've done neither, pick up Red Rising, and you're going to want to then go and buy the rest of that trilogy. And I'm really itching to start that second trilogy now. Anyway, just a little bit different for you, talking about some books that are board game-ish related. And until next time, enjoy reading. So, you hopefully enjoyed the video. There's some others here that you could have a look at. Like, subscribe and all that jazz. And, oh, is that one? Or that one the video you're going to watch? Well, go and have a look. Bye!